All right, y'all, welcome back to the show. It's Antiwar Radio. Scott Horton, thanks for listening to the show today. On the line is Kevin Zeese from Voters for Peace. Welcome back to the show, Kevin. How are you, man?
Great. Thanks for having me on, Scott. Good to hear your voice.
How's the left-right libertarian realignment against the empire going?
I think it's starting to gel. I think more and more people on the left in particular are recognizing the lesson from the Iraq War. You know, when the anti-war movement was at its peak before Iraq, the invasion, and after the invasion, we were not able to stop the war or end the war. And that's still true today. You know, even Obama, who's, calling the war as an end, he's leaving tens of thousands of troops and tens of thousands more paramilitary private contractors over there. But the lesson is that we could not influence the end of the war because we all came from one side. That was a Democrat left side. And President Bush didn't hear from his base. And so we need to organize people on the right as well as the left so that no matter who's in office, we can pressure the president. An alliance of right and left, can move Congress to use their powers to stop war funding. But an alliance of just the left, no matter how strong it is not going to affect Republicans because the Republican base needs to oppose these wars as much as the Democrat base. So we have a lot of work to do to organize the right. And Scott, that there's a long history of opposition to war on the right, from the Philippines War up to the World Wars, even in Vietnam. And that traditional conservative ideology of avoiding military intervention has been drowned out by the neoconservatives who've taken over the conservative mantle, and we need to restore that traditional conservative voice that comes out against war. Now, I come at this from the left perspective. I'm not aligned with any political party, but I'm certainly left of center, and so I'm very comfortable talking to workers and to people from that perspective. But we need to reach out beyond that. We need a broad basis support. We need an American anti-war movement, not a left anti-war movement. We need to really have something that can be effective in stopping these juggernauts that lead to wars and continue these and lead to continuing these wars.
Right on. Well, as you know, that's my sentiment exactly since I started doing pirate radio in 1999 or something. I think I could talk to the right because I'm a libertarian and I understand their point of view on a lot of things, like the populist, really anti-government right, not just the anti-Bill Clinton right, but the real anti-government right and anti-war right. And, of course, I'm friends with a bunch of lefties mostly, and so I like them. And the reason that I was always such a big Justin Raimondo fan since I ever found Antiwar.com, I was just thrilled to even know the libertarians owned the URL Antiwar.com, because I think that for anyone who cares about human rights and liberty at all, you have to oppose war. It's the germ of every evil thing going on in this society, and that's a lot, Kevin. We got to stop it. I swear to God, I don't care what you believe about anything else but the Bill of Rights and war. Everything else doesn't matter to me at all.
Right. Well, it really is the root of so many of the economic problems the country is facing. We really have an empire economy, and that's not talked about a lot in the United States, but we have an empire economy. What I mean by that is we have more than 700 military bases around the world, more than 1,000 military bases and outposts around the world. We use our military power and our economic power to really try to dictate world policy. And because we have so many client states, we have to create jobs in those client states, and that's costing the United States' industrial base. And treaties like NAFTA are great for corporations, but not great for the American worker. And so we're seeing that kind of empire economy hurting us at home. And I think that's part of what we're seeing in the American economy. It's not the whole story, but it's a big part of the story. I'm glad you mentioned Antiwar.com. I met with Justin Raimondo and Eric Garris and Angela Keaton, who works with you, when I was out in California recently, and that's a great website for those who really want to know what's going on in war and militarism around the world. They cover the whole gambit, and they do it from a perspective that's cross-ideological. I get published on that website. I'm coming from the left, people from the right, libertarians, liberals, Democrats, anyone who's opposed to war and empire, has a home in that place. And anyone who's opposed to war and empire, if you use that website as a great place for talking points and to really know what's going on around the world, that is a great place to start. I find to be a very useful resource. So they're very excited about this left-right alliance. and I'm really happy working with them on it. I think there's great potential of that. But yeah, I think you're right about how, war and military spending, and I hate calling it defense spending, by the way. That's such a fraudulent term. It's not defense spending in our country. It's war and weapons spending, and we should call it by that name because that's what it really is. It makes up half of our discretionary spending. So you hear the Obama, deficit commission talking about getting control of the deficit. They don't talk about cutting the military budget, though. They talk about cutting Social Security, which has actually, brought in so many trillions of dollars, and has money that it's raised that will keep Social Security stable for decades. But they're going after Social Security and Medicare rather than after the war budget. Start with the war budget. There's bloat in there. There's waste in there. We're spending as much as the whole world combined on weapons and war. It's time to cut that budget and do it quickly because it's an out-of-control spending mechanism. It's just like, they always say about a carpenter. He's going to, he has a hammer, he's going to nail. Well, the same thing is true with our country. If we're going to spend half our discretionary spending on weapons and war, we're going to use weapons and war to solve foreign policy problems. I'm very disappointed to see Obama, for example, now pushing the largest ever weapons selling package, $60 billion to Saudi Arabia. That's the last thing the Middle East needs is more weapons and more war, and that's what Obama's going to be providing with that multi-billion-dollar sale of weapons to Saudi Arabia, which he's about to notify Congress about. So we have a lot of our work cut out for us. And I think another reason why a right-left effort works is because it makes us pure. It makes us clearly against war and empire. And that purity of that statement is very powerful because right now you have a lot of anti-war folks still confused because we have a Democratic president in the White House who came in as the anti-war candidate saying to end the Iraq war and is now putting out this, misinformation about how the Iraq war is ending. We've had troops dying in Iraq, since he said the combat operations are finished. They've died in combat. So I don't know what he's talking about, but he's pulling the wool over the eyes of the American people with those speeches. But a lot of Democrats who oppose war are not sure what to do. And if we had a right-left, very clear anti-war, anti-empire organization like we're developing at ComeHomeAmerica.us, then you would see us standing up to a Democratic president when he puts out misinformation like that. You see the anti-war movement protesting when he campaigns in favor of expanding the Afghanistan war, protesting the use of the drones that he's been using that kill more civilians than they kill enemies. We see that kind of thing. So I'm pretty optimistic this is going to happen. And our next step in ComeHomeAmerica.us is to put out a book, which is going to be called ComeHomeAmerica.us. It'll be coming out later this month or early next month. And it's going to provide a history of anti-war activism from across the political spectrum, a current discussion of the wars we're currently involved in from people from different views on the political spectrum, and a look toward the future of what can be done. So I hope people go to ComeHomeAmerica.us, sign up, and start to get involved because we are going to create an American anti-war movement like we've never seen before, and one that's essential because we are now engaged in not just the Iraq and Afghanistan war as well as attacks in Pakistan. We're engaged in what the Pentagon calls the long war. People who are listening to this program now will see war the rest of their lives unless the American people put a stop to it. It's our responsibility. So an American anti-war movement is urgently needed. We need to wake up the American public, and the American public needs to wake up the politicians to tell them we're not going to have a lifetime of war. We're not going to live through generations of war. We have domestic priorities that need to be funded. We have people struggling to make ends meet, and we need to restore our economy and not be spending our money on weapons and war around the world.
Yeah. Well, I think that's such an important point, and it's kind of difficult to get a show on Pacifica Radio because I guess they're afraid I'm going to talk about Austrian economics or something like that. But my thing is, we can all agree, all good people, decent people can agree, all that money would be better spent here at home. And we'll just leave out who you want to spend it. Maybe you want the government to spend it on more schools. I would rather have people spend it themselves or whatever instead. But that's not the point. The point